I have two daughters. My stepdaughter is 19 and my bio daughter is 17. I married my now wife, stepdaughter's bio mom, 7 years ago. My daughters don't have the best relationship. The issue was mostly my own daughter wanting her mom and I to get back together, and her lashing and acting out when younger. Lots of family therapy later, and they have a polite and civil relationship, but it is kind of a no-love lost thing. My own individual relationships with both girls is strong. My stepdaughter does call me dad, and as far as we are both concerned, we are family. There has recently been an issue that has caused contention within my bio daughter though. My mother passed away unexpectedly. There was a will, but it was unfortunately very much in need of an update. My mom had wanted all her grandkids to be considered, but there have been additions to the extended family, and the will wasn't updated to include them before my mother passed. My sister and I decided that fulfilling the spirit of the will was more important than the letter of it. So, after all the named parties in the will were bequeathed with what was spelled out, instead of dividing the remainder of everything evenly, we made sure that those of us with kids not named in the will got more, so we could pass it forward to them. This means I inherited part of my mother's jewelry collection. She had several valuable collections, pieces dating back to the late 1800s and early 1900s, vintage Tiffany and Company items. Some of the pieces were valued into 5 figures. My bio daughter was left a significant cash sum from my mother, which she will get when she turns 18. I divided the jewelry up between my daughters, so that my stepdaughter's share's value was equivalent to what my daughter is receiving in cash. My daughter is absolutely livid about this. She feels that as family heirlooms, the more valuable pieces are her birthright. She says it isn't fair that they are going to someone not related to my mother, and has been saying that if I don't give her some of those pieces, that as soon as she turns 18, she is taking her money and will never speak to me again. Am I the a-hole for how I distributed everything? You're the a-hole due to how you split, and the fact your mother had 7 years to include your stepdaughter, and didn't. You should have considered that. I understand wanting to include your stepdaughter, but giving her the lion's share of the jewelry is very unfair. It was wrong to match your daughter's cash amount. You should have split the jewelry 50-50, or given stepdaughter a few token pieces. You're the a-hole. You and your sister decided to override a legal document that spelled out your mother's final wishes. You said it hadn't been updated to add stepchildren and step-grandchildren. She could have updated her will in the many years since the step-grandchildren have come into the family, if she had wanted to. She didn't. You disregarded your mother's last wishes and replaced it with your own. Your stepdaughter undoubtedly has a bio family who may provide for her later. Are you going to force her to give half of that to your daughter who has no relationship? When you die, you can have a will deciding how you want your estate divided. You don't have a moral or legal right to override your mother's last will. Your daughter is right. This is probably not the first time you have shown favor to your stepdaughter over your bio daughter. You will be fortunate if you don't lose your relationship with your daughter over this. You're the a-hole. Reason 1. You and your sister don't get to do an interpretive dance with your mother's will. The laws are pretty clear on this. If you wanted to give your stepdaughter a fair share, you had 2 options. Either it comes out of your portion of the settlement, or you balance it out with your own estate planning. Reason 2. If your daughter only got money and you gave the family heirloom pieces to your stepdaughter, then intentional or not, you created a clear message to your daughter that she is not part of family history. Edit. This was all checked by our family attorney. My daughter cannot challenge the will and reasonably expect to win. The will was followed to a T. The grandkids in the will were all left $50K cash. The rest of the estate was supposed to be divided evenly between my siblings and I. After the will was executed, my siblings who don't have kids, or who only had kids named in the will, then gifted some of their funds or items to those of us who had kids that were not in the will. Will was followed. 2 of my sisters gave me their rightful share of the jewelry after the estate was settled. That was the agreement my siblings and I had, because we know our mom would have wanted things fair. Edit 2. My daughter did receive some jewelry. She got the one piece she specifically asked for, one of the only pieces my mom actually wore, and a few others as well. My stepdaughter just received the valuable pieces, which were not sentimental. My mother never wore them. They were collector's pieces only. My stepdaughter and mother had a great relationship and were active in each other's lives. My 35 female husband of 9 years just passed away from a pulmonary embolism. Besides me, he leaves behind our 8-year-old son and 4-year-old daughter. My late husband was a doctor who had a very popular practice in our town. We live in a small town in the Great Plains area, notorious for having few options for good quality healthcare because of a provider shortage. After his death, we received an outpouring of condolences from the community. I was receiving dozens upon dozens of messages from people who wanted to talk about the time he treated them, or a family member, and ended up releasing them from their payment plans when they encountered financial hardship. There were also letters thanking me and my husband for those times we postponed our vacations, so he could rush to a patient's side and be there for them. His funeral was today, and I was home inviting his patients and friends, asking them if they wanted to speak, and preparing my own eulogy. When my husband died, my 13-year-old stepdaughter was with us, but right afterwards, she went to her mother's, 53 female house. My son and daughter obviously still live with me, and because we are under the same roof, I was able to incorporate them into my speech where they'd stand with me, and at the end, they could both say how much their dad meant to them, what they loved to do with him, their fondest memories, how they'd miss him. My stepdaughter wasn't in the house when any of this was going on. However, after her mom called me, I told them the date and the time of the funeral, and invited both of them. Her mom called me yesterday morning to tell me that my stepdaughter had a 2-minute speech prepared for her dad, and emailed me the entire speech. I was very shocked, because it seemed my stepdaughter just expected to be able to speak at the funeral, and not tell me this during the 7+ days prior. Second, her speech was rather long, and had a lot of things that my kids were going to be saying. When her mom suggested that she just stand with her half-siblings and add in the parts that would not be a repeat, I refused, because my son is new to speeches, and changing things up was probably going to confuse him. I told my stepdaughter's mom that she could be there to grieve her dad, but that she could not speak. She got mad and said I was hard to reach, and that nothing in her speech was inappropriate, and that 2 minutes was not too long, even if the other speakers would be shorter. I agree that I'm sure her speech would have been lovely, but it was too late, and I couldn't risk this situation throwing the event off and giving my kids confusion since we rehearsed our eulogy. So the funeral was today, and my stepdaughter did not speak, but even after I allowed her to be among us and receive condolences from the line of friends and family, my parents are calling me an a-hole, and my stepdaughter's mom glared at me on the way out. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. Your stepdaughter lost her father at the age of 13 and wants 120 seconds to express to everyone how much she loves and admires him, and you said no. I try to cut grieving people a lot of slack, but this is absolutely horrible, and I really hope someday you give her the apology she deserves. You're the a-hole, like majorly. It may have been your husband, but it was her father. I understand you're grieving, but so is she. She is also only 13, while you are a whole grown adult. You may not want to hear this, but you can get a new husband. That was her one and only dad. She will not get a new one. You have likely created resentment between her and her half-siblings that will be difficult for them to work through later in life. You have also likely made her feel even more alone on a day that was already going to be hard on her. She's going to remember the way you treated her on this very traumatizing day for the rest of her life. Just seriously, how can you think you're in the right? Edited to add, you allowed her to receive condolences? Like she doesn't have a right to them? It's like you think you own the grief related to your husband's passing. Huge, you're the a-hole. I notice in the beginning you talk about him leaving behind, you and y'all's kids, but don't mention stepdaughter at all. She was way more entitled to having a say with this funeral than you. Haha. I've been married to my husband for 14 years now. When we met, he had 3 children from a previous marriage. They were around 8, 11, and 15. I had a 2-year-old from a previous marriage as well. Together we have a 12-year-old son. We have all aged quite a bit, and the oldest of his children is 28. She's married and has 4 children ranging in age from 8 to 2. We don't see her very much except on holidays. His children were all raised by his mother. He had them young, so they were more bonded to his parents. My daughter is now 16. I coupon a lot and usually get a good deal on makeup. I give a lot of it to my daughter and also get her hair and nails fixed once a month. It's only about $100 a month to do it. On Thanksgiving, my stepdaughter was sitting there and her roots were showing badly, and her nails don't look like they have been messed with for years. She also doesn't wear any makeup at all. So I told her that she could buy some of the makeup that I've collected and that she would look better. She told me she was fine with how she looked now. I told her it was just fine for her to be happy with it, but her husband would probably like for her to look more than just average. She got offended by this and told me that if her husband didn't like the way she looked, that he could leave and that she wasn't changing anything. Her husband just sat there, and I noticed he whispered something to her, and immediately after, they said they had to go because one of the kids was having an allergic reaction to the eggs that he was fed. He did look a little blotchy, but I figured they were leaving because of me, so I told them that they didn't need to leave on my account. This further angered her, and she told me that not everything is about me. Her dad jumped in on it and said that I was just trying to help because my daughter was so beautiful and she kept herself up every month, and that I was just trying to be nice. Her and her father then got into an argument, so they all left. Since then, some extended family members have brought themselves into it because my stepdaughter has painted me to be an evil villain. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You told her she looked average and tried to sell her makeup. That you've collected by couponing. You tried to profit off your stepdaughter by trying to damage your self-esteem, and you failed. Also, it looks like you fed your grandson something he's allergic to. You look like crap. Here, I'll sell you some makeup so you can cover up your flaws that I'm pointing out to you. Oh, you don't want to wear makeup? Well, I'm sure your husband would like it if you were less ugly. You're the a-hole. I don't think she has to paint you as the evil villain when you play the role so willingly. Comparing a 16-year-old to a 28-year-old is crazy. Also, giving your grandchild something you know they're allergic to, and then saying it's not a big deal, is very concerning. You're the a-hole. I, 35 female, have been married for 7 years to my husband, 45 male, who is a single father to my stepdaughter, Lucy, 15 female. Also, I have a son from a previous relationship, Toby, 10 male. In these 7 years, Lucy never recognized us as family, and when she introduces us, we are dad's wife and dad's wife's son. Birthdays are very important to me. Ever since Toby was born, I've thrown giant birthday parties for him. That didn't change after I married my husband, and I thought about doing it for Lucy as well, but she refused. She refuses every year, and everything related to her birthday is banned from the house. Since she is turning 15 this year, I decided to throw her a surprise party. We organized it with Toby, invitations to her classmates, family, and close friends, games, karaoke, catering, and decorations. Not even my husband knew. I took the day off from work and Toby skipped school to fix everything. At night, my husband and Lucy arrived. They have dinner alone for her birthday. And we yelled, "Surprise!" And they didn't look happy. But I assumed it was because of the surprise. My husband didn't say anything to me, and Lucy disappeared almost immediately. I assumed to go talk to her friends. The party was amazing. Everyone had fun. The games were a hit, and overall, I had a great time. When bringing the cake to sing happy birthday, I called for Lucy, but she wasn't in the party. We looked for her around the house, but she wasn't there, and neither was my husband. After half an hour of trying to call them both on their cell phones, the mood got ruined, and everyone left. The two returned after midnight and didn't feel guilty about leaving. I immediately asked them why they left. Lucy didn't say anything and went to her bedroom, and my husband told me to calm down. He explained that Lucy wasn't feeling well, so they went to the beach. I scolded him for not telling me, but he just shrugged and said, "You were too busy enjoying the party to notice," and went to sleep. I don't understand why they both disrespected me like that. I invested a lot of time and money in the party, and they haven't even apologized for leaving. It's been 3 days, and the two act as if nothing happened. When I try to talk about it, Lucy looks at me like I'm crazy, and my husband doesn't call her out on it. I'm tired of her indifference. I threatened my husband to take Toby and leave if they didn't open up about it, but he, surprise, shrugged and told me to calm down. I love them both, but this party disaster has made me believe it's not reciprocated, and I'm seriously considering getting a divorce. You are totally in the wrong here. You knew she only wanted to celebrate with her dad. You may want to see her as family, but she doesn't see you as family, and you can't force that on someone. You should really apologize to her. Also, you did this for you, not for her. OP, you threw the party for yourself, not your stepdaughter. She is not obligated to enjoy the party, just because you went to all the effort of arranging it. Apologize, genuinely, and admit you made a massive mistake by not telling your husband of your plans. He would have told you it wouldn't be appreciated. Heck, I could see that from your first paragraph. You had a great time, and so did the guests. Lucy also had a good time at the beach with her dad. You were so wrapped up in your own pleasure, you didn't even notice she was there. Now, start to pay attention to where else you stop over Lucy's boundaries, and your relationship may start to recover. Or maybe it's the last straw for your husband too. They didn't disrespect you. You knew your stepdaughter didn't like birthday parties, and you made her one knowing that. Not only that, but I believe you did it for yourself, because if you had done it for her, you would have noticed that she wasn't around during the party. Say you were sorry, that you love her, and will respect her boundaries, and keep the door open if she wants a relationship with you. I, 55 male, started dating my girlfriend, now wife, Alyssa, 26 female, about 1.5 years ago. We got married only a few months after dating. I know some may look strangely at the age gap between us, but she is a very mature young woman, and for me personally, age doesn't mean a thing when it comes to love. She cooks me dinner, cleans my house, gives me back massages. She's the nicest woman I've ever met since my late wife passed a couple years ago. When I first introduced my wife to my daughters Jenna, who was 20, and Alyssa, 13, I could see the shock in their faces. I wasn't surprised they were shocked. I expected it. But I expected them to at least show common courtesy to her as a guest. But Jenna in particular was being very rude. She ignored Elisa when she was trying to spark a conversation with her. She gave her dirty looks and just made her feel unwelcome. It only got worse from there. She's called my wife a gold digger, a W, multiple times, and when I told her we were getting married, she said she hopes she takes every last penny from me. Jenna never used to be this way. She used to be a sweet girl. My other daughter Alyssa's birthday party was a few days ago, and when Jenna arrived, she didn't bother greeting my wife and completely ignored her. I was fed up and told Jenna we needed to have a talk one-on-one, outside, and which I told her she needs to start showing some respect to her stepmother. That I didn't know or care what her issue was with her. Whatever it is or was, she needs to drop it. Otherwise, she shouldn't bother coming to our house anymore. Jenna started crying and called me an a-hole for putting my wife before her. She told me she's never coming back to our house again, and I haven't heard from her since. After a few days of reflection, I feel I may have been too harsh with Jenna, but at the same time, I let her get away with being rude to my wife for too long. Was I wrong for going off on my daughter and giving her an ultimatum? You're the a-hole. What was the gap between your wife dying and your dating? Also, why is getting your end wet by a woman who was born when you were 29 more important than your children? You're a terrible father. So, let me get this straight. You speed dated a woman half your age and who was very close in age to your daughter. Then, you want your new wife to mother your daughter, who is more of her sister in age, experience, and wisdom, while your daughter is being forced to submit to this unquestioningly. Where are you not an a-hole in this scenario? The person in this equation who needs to be showing anyone respect is you toward your daughter. She has legitimate concerns, yet instead of addressing them, you went full-on a-hole. Fix this. You're the a-hole. A 30-year age gap is never acceptable, especially when the older man decides to be involved with a woman not much older than his own children and expects the kids to treat the new wife like their mother. New wife is your daughter's peer, not her stepma. You're the a-hole.